Here in this country, we're in the midst of an opioid crisis that shows no sign of abating. As health and government officials wrestle to find solutions, everyday families are suffering the consequences. Today, we're going to hear one mom's journey of dealing with the addiction of her daughter. Judy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I know that your daughter wasn't necessarily opioids, but I think addiction is addiction. You know, you grew up in a great Christian home, had these kind of normalized dreams for your life, and you never imagined you'd be in this journey. How did your daughter get on this path?
Well, that's a very good question, and key to what you just said is everyday families. Because I know for me, I grew up in a Christian home, and I expected that if I followed the rules and did everything right, then all would go right with my world. I couldn't have been more wrong, and I found out that much of life is out of my control. But for my daughter, I always thought, well, she grew up in a broken home. That's a whole other story in and of itself. Of course she has problems, right? And then as I began to share my story with others, I began to meet families of all different shapes and sizes. Good, normal, healthy, everyday, as you said, families. And so I realized, yeah, this can happen to just about anyone. Now my daughter, she struggled early on with ADHD, which is a hyperactive child. She was my challenge, that's for sure. She was like 10 kids in one. But with that type of child, they have low impulse control. They tend to get in trouble wherever they go, developing low self-esteem. And it makes them a prime victim in their teens to fall into this sort of thing. And for many, it's a bad choice in a weak moment, and they do something they shouldn't do. But for a great many, it becomes no longer a choice, but it becomes a battle for their life.
And your daughter, I know, throughout all of this journey, and it's been quite a number of years, at one point she shared with you that a lot of this started in her life because she believed a lie. When she was diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety, she believed that she was bad. So tell me about how this lie started weaving its way into her life.
I think all of us have moments in our life where the enemy puts a lie in our head and it holds on to us. And for her, she did get in trouble a lot because of her low impulse control, and I think in those moments she told herself that she was bad, and maybe didn't deserve the good things in life or good people in her life because of that lie that she was believing.
And isn't that how the enemy works? He just starts subtly weaving that into our lives. And, you know, because of that, she got in a number of toxic relationships. Now, you're, of course, a mom, and they say that being a mom is like having your heart walk around outside of your body permanently. So as she was kind of diving into toxic relationships with people, were you trying to rescue her?
Oh, of course. I did all the things that many of us do. And, of course, your kids don't always listen to you. And the more you push, the more they go into these relationships that you definitely wouldn't choose for them. That's a journey in and of itself, is forgiving those that came into her life and putting all the blame on them, because there's always a friend or a boyfriend or someone in their life that you blame for the condition that they're in, instead of making it your child's responsibility for the choices that they're making.
Because that's so hard, because you love them. You don't want to believe anything bad about them, but how hard is it to love somebody who actually is trying to use your love for them to get what they need, to fuel their addiction? So, I mean, it's a natural part of addiction that they're going to use you.
You mean my daughter using me?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. When somebody's in addiction, they're very, very manipulative, and they will do whatever necessary to get to whatever that drug is. And for many, it's getting money from you or rescuing them from situations and that sort of thing. I certainly did that for a number of years before I stopped. A good way to describe being in a situation with an addict or a parent is the addict is someone that's banging their head against the wall over and over and over again, and me was holding a pillow between her and the wall, keeping her from feeling the pain the consequences of her choices. And eventually you get tired of holding that pillow in place because your whole life becomes about holding that pillow there, and protecting them, keeping them from the pain.
And an addict is never going to change until they experience enough pain.
Right. Well, why would any one of us want to change our destructive choices if our choices cost us nothing?
Yeah. Well, we're going to come back and we're going to find out a little bit more about what you learned, some tips we can give people who are maybe dealing with this with someone in their family about how to survive. And we're going to find out how your daughter Ashley is doing today in just a moment.